Hello, Professor. This is Matthew Weaver. For this sprint, I designed and tested two APIs. They are vote/ballot, which displays the ballot of a particular voter based on their precinct ID and the election date. The other is vote/record, which simply records the votes of a particular voter and stores the fact that the voter voted in the database. For full details on all the values that are stored in the request and responses for both APIs, please go to Swagger by clicking the link that is located in our DevOps project on Azure. I will begin by looking at the code for the ballot API. As you can see here, the first thing the API does is validate that the information the user entered is a valid state ID and mobile number. This is done by calling a method from the utility class. The utility class is where we store code for methods that will be used repeatedly throughout the application. If the information entered is correct, the API attempts to pull the voter information from the database. Next, it checks the status of the voter's account in the system. This is done by calling the account status method, once again stored in the utility class. In the last sprint, this method would have just been an if statement used over and over throughout the code. The team decided that because it was being used so much, it was better to turn the code into a method and then call the method. If the voter has already voted in the election, as indicated by the account status method, then an empty ballot will be returned to the voter. If the ballot has not been approved, the voter will see a message indicating as such. Otherwise, the appropriate ballot is passed, is polled based on the voter's precinct and election date. Here's the entire API. This API was not difficult to write. However, it took me a while because there was a small inconsistency between the ballot method found in the database and the object model. This inconsistency caused a lot of unnecessary code to be written and rewritten. However, once the team found and corrected the inconsistency, the code became streamlined and the API passed the information between the objects easily and efficiently. Let's look at the test results. I ran the test for these two APIs in Postman. Here's the request, and here is the response. Now let's talk about the record API. Here is the record API. Once again, it checks the input from the user to verify their mobile number and state ID. Then it calls the account status method, and if the voter has already voted, this API will return false. Otherwise, we use Azure blockchain technology to loop through all the information on the ballot and record each individual vote. Blockchain technology allows the application to loop through lists of incoming data from multiple sources effectively and it also provides applications the ability to have data continuously grow. Once the votes are counted, the day of the vote is recorded and stored in the database. After that, the API returns true. If anything else happens, the API will return false. Here is the full API. Now let's use Postman again to look at the test results. Here is the test results for a first-time voter for the Record API. Here is the request, and the response is true because they haven't voted in this election before. Now that the record vote has been processed, let's relook at the ballot API to see the empty object that is sent back to the UI because the voter has already voted. Here is the request, and you can see an empty response because the voter has already voted. Now to the next section of the presentation. Now let's talk about the Record API. Once again, it checks the input from the user for their mobile number and state ID to make sure that they are valid. It then gets the account status by calling the account status method, and if the voter has already voted, this API will return false. Otherwise, it uses Azure blockchain technology to loop through all the information on the ballot and record each individual vote. Blockchain technology allows the application to loop through lists of incoming data from multiple sources efficiently, and also provides the application the ability to have data grow continuously. Once the votes are counted, the day of the vote has been recorded in the database, and after that, the API will return true. If anything else happens, the API will return false. Here's the full API.